They've got a new gaffer, they're not really making any moves in the transfer window. Former Spurs striker Darren Bent was back on drive this afternoon, questioning whether the club hierarchy are ready to back their new manager.
So for Thomas Frank going into this job, he would have looked at what he'd have played against them a couple of times last season. He would have seen how they got on last season. He'd have watched footage from the start of the season to how they finished the season, and he'll know they need reinforcements all over the pitch. But surely you're going to have to back him now. You go all out to sack Ange, you won you a trophy, and bring Thomas Frank in because you believe he's the right man.
Yeah.
You have to give him every single possibility to succeed. Oh, yeah. Because we spoke about it in the meeting. If they finish 10th this season...
Say it properly.
10th, right?
10th.
Would the Spurs fans look at Thomas Frank and go...
Great question.
Like, job well done.
Great question.
And the answer to that is no.
Yeah, that was Bentley obviously speaking on drive. They brought Thomas Frank in. I think he's a really good manager, but I feel like, and I'm hoping I'm wrong because it's still early days in the transfer window, it feels to me like they've brought in Thomas Frank and that's given Daniel Levy a cushion to go quiet on spending any money.
And it's easy to make that accusation. If you want to pick at Spurs, it's Daniel Levy's the obvious target, isn't he? But
yeah.
Do you know what? I look at the Spurs squad. I know they finished in a ridiculous position in the league, and it doesn't need ripping up. They built a lot of young players, and I think players underperformed. I think the manager was at fault last season. I think there was injury issues to defensive players at the start of the season, first half of the season in particular. But I wouldn't be looking at ripping that squad up. I think if you get rid of 4 or 5 players, bring 4 or 5 in.
Who would you get rid of?
We're talking about Richarlison today, aren't they? So I think that he hasn't had the impact at Spurs that you would look at. I think central defence, I think they're well stocked in central defence.
Yeah.
Maybe, I think left back and right back, I think they're okay. If you're looking at Porro and Jed Spence and Udogie, I think they're well stocked in that position. Midfield, could they do a bit more creativity? But then you got Maddison, you know, and he missed games for injury last season. So I think with a better manager, and I'm thankful as a Spurs fan, Postecoglou won the Europa League. But I could see the same mistakes being made over the last 2 years, and I could see the same errors from the players, the same errors from the coach and the coaching staff, and it did frustrate me. But when they buckled down and when they knuckled down for a tournament they thought they could win, they applied themselves. So I don't think it needs a massive rip-up. That squad underperforms. 17th, wasn't it?
I think Bentley makes a great point about where should Spurs finish, right? Realistically now. And he said there in that little clip, if they finish 10th, no Spurs fan is celebrating that.
No chance.
Right? Even though he's improved and it's impossible to get any worse unless you get relegated, and that's not happening. I think minimum European football. I genuinely 100%. Feel minimum. That, you know,
it's a big step up, though. I mean, we finished 17th.
No, I genuinely
and we've got Champions League football.
I don't think it's a big step up. I think that the league performance was a disgrace.
Yeah.
It's an absolute disgrace. You got away with murder last year.
22 defeats, wasn't it?
Mate, you got away with murder. That's never happening.
Good season, no tell.
It wasn't a good season.
Memorable season.
Iconic.
It was a terrible season, and you got out of jail, right? And that's fine. Cup competition, it can do that. Cup.
Yeah.
Let me tell you now, 17th is an absolute disgrace. It's the worst performance ever by a so-called big club in the Premier League. Ever. Argue that point. You can't.
No.
European champions.
No, but you can't. You can't argue that point,
champions.
right?
Come on, tell. You played for Spurs. Help me out.
I know, but the point is, that was... So they can't get any worse. Now, be better, but be much better. Be where Spurs should be. Spurs are a top-half team, minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, get in the Europa Conference. I think anything less than European football is a failure. Genuinely feel it's a failure.
I know, but I mean
league here, not scraping in, not getting, dropping. You can't drop down anymore, can you? But
no.
You know what I'm saying? Come on. You saying that Spurs, will you be happy with 10th?
No, I won't be happy.
You're not winning the Champions League, are you?
It's not the league position that I'm worried about. It will be the manner of our performances. Thomas Frank's first season in charge, you can't expect him to go and get Champions League football. It's just not going to happen.
I'm not saying that.
There's a lot of good teams, like Bournemouth have got Semenyo.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like Brentford have had Mbuemo. There's good players in every team.
Top 4, he wins Manager of the Year.
Yeah,
right.
I think
if he gets top 4,
but I think it's harsh to put pressure on him straight away to say he's got to get European football. Like we're in the Champions League, which is a massive competition.
It is Spurs.
Honestly,
I'd still
yourself.
Be hopeful of.
You think it's a massive question to say to finish above? Okay, name the teams. Right.
Well, we ain't going to finish above Liverpool,
Okay,
Man
okay,
City,
right.
Arsenal.
Yeah. Chelsea, right?
Yeah, Chelsea,
Newcastle,
Villa.
Aston Villa.
right?
Right. Yeah, so that's 6.
Right. Let's go to 7.
Yeah, so 7
But are you saying
is where
the
Spurs
Spurs
want
can't
to try.
finish-
I think 7.
All right. Okay.
If we can get 7
Well, then you get conference
with a new manager, I think, and a decent spell of good football and a structure to our play, and
More than possible, in my
he's
opinion.
proving that the players that like Brennan Johnson's and he gets the best out of Maddison and the young players that we've got who have come in, then I'd be happy with that because it's his first season. But I want to see a better style of football. I don't want to see us losing 22 games. Do you know what I mean? Now that can't happen. We need to be a well-drilled, oiled side. And where that puts us in the league, I don't know, because I don't know if the player's good enough.
Only Man United, the other side, you can go, they should be doing better. But other than that, Forest, can they do what they did last year?
Yeah, but, mate,
Can they? I don't know.
Nottingham Forest, Elanga's talking about going for £65 million. They've got Morgan Gibbs-White, he's starting for England. Hudson-Odoi's had a great season. 2 centre-halves. Fantastic.
Chris Wood.
What was it? Aina. As a right back. They've got a great team.
Will you finish
Matt
above
Sells,
Forest?
he got manager, he got goalkeeper of the season. Don't tell, are Spurs that good?
No,
Are Spurs better than Nottingham Forest?
No, you're that bad. You haven't got a clue how good you are. You're that bad last year. You're scrambling around talking about players that probably on their day shouldn't get ahead of Brennan Johnson.
Morgan Gibbs-White starts for Tottenham. Elanga
Last
starts
season.
for Tottenham.
Last season. This season.
Callum Hudson-Odoi starts. Who's the lad in midfield?
Well,
Brilliant for Nottingham
Forest.
Forest.
17th.
Well, Aina. He's probably on par with Porro, maybe better. Keeper starts. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Everyone expects Tottenham to be like, right, we've got Thomas Frank, we're going to get Champions League football.
See,
That's it. Tottenham have got to be Champions League.
I'd still say with 3 or 4 of those teams that Jason just mentioned that I still think Spurs should be pitching around that. Villa, Newcastle, even Chelsea are developing their squad. So I don't.
Chelsea
I think
spent
Liverpool,
£1 billion,
yes.
Phil.
Man City, we don't know what to expect. Arsenal. I can't bring myself to say anything.
I
good
know,
about
but
Arsenal.
You're struggling to.
you can't get away from the fact that Arsenal are on a different level to Tottenham right now in terms of where they've got to. In terms of
I think Spurs have underachieved so much.
in the league.
Yeah, in the league.
Yeah.
The reality.
I think you're right.
The reality
No,
is,
it's
we
no
don't
doubt.
know.
It's
We
no
don't know.
doubt.
We don't know how good we are.
but they're not 17th worst side in the
No,
country.
they're not
I'm
17th.
I will not. No
Obvious-
one will ever tell me that with a straight face.
Obviously, it's got
The
to be
problem
top
was the
half.
first half of the season was wrecked for injury. The second half was one eye on the Europa League. That was the get out, wasn't it? They weren't going to qualify for Europe.
No, I think that.
So there it was suddenly, we're not going to get relegated. We're in no man's land. Yeah, but what does it matter if we finish 14th, 15th, 17th? Some of the games they lost, the reserve team were playing and players were being rested and because it was all about staying in the Europa League.
Do you think he's going to be successful, Thomas Frank?
I think the tools are there for him to be successful, yeah. But what is successful at Spurs at the moment? Postecoglou's been successful and gone.
Yeah.
Successful.
I think now
competing on a regular basis.
Yeah, regular
for the
basis.
for the top 4.
Top 5, top 6, regular basis. Latter stages
You
of
get
tournament.
conference football next season,
Good
right?
structure.
I think that's a very good place to start the rebuild and go again. Genuinely,
Yeah.
I do. I think
I'll be happy with 7th. If we finish 7th next season, I'll be happy as a Spurs fan. And we don't embarrass ourselves in the Champions League.
Oh, that'll happen.
What do you mean?
No
that's
chance.
that's coming. I can't
No
wait
chance.
for those nights.
We're going to embarrass ourselves, aren't we?
There's a lot of average teams in the Champions.
Yeah, Spurs are one of them.
We won't be. We won't be. Spurs won't be. I promise you. I'll come back on if I get egg all over my face if it goes horribly wrong. I'm more than happy to come back in, but they'll qualify out the group. Do
you think? You think we qualify?
Yeah, of course.
What, straight qualification?
Yes.
Really? That's a big statement.
It might be via the playoff,
What
but
pot are you in, though? You know what pot you're in? You're in pot F.
The Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy. Monday to Thursday nights from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.